career expos that are coming up. If you are not here for that, well, just stick around, you'll get the information anyways. So we represent the Career and Advising Center on campus, where I'm Brandon Schutz. I'm a career coach here. I help people with any career exploration or career preparation. Jerry, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jerry South. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Coaching. So I also help folks with resumes, cover letters, interview prep, etc. So if you have any questions for us throughout or after the presentation, feel free to reach out via email. Our contact information will be at the end as well, and our services are always available to you.
All right, so like we talked about, we do a lot of different career fairs on campus, from our big expo to just, things focusing on accounting or sales and marketing or part-time jobs. You name it, we do a whole gambit of career expos. And so if you're here, you want a little bit more information about what you should do to prepare for those. And so we're just going to start from the beginning. And so what we suggest is the first thing you should do is we have a job board and professional networking tool called Handshake. You can find it on our Career and Advising website. Also, if you just Google NDSU Handshake, generally you'll get results that way as well. And so basically, you may have heard of like LinkedIn or Indeed or a lot of other job boards and networking tools. This is similar to that, just a little more curated. So we vet any employers that are going to connect with us or any jobs they post. So you're getting legitimate companies and legitimate jobs if you are going through Handshake through NDSU. And so any jobs that get posted there, maybe you're going to graduate soon. There's full-time jobs that get posted there from companies looking for our graduates. Part-time jobs, we are generally trying to get all of our on-campus jobs going forward posted on Handshake. So if you're looking for some work on campus, great place to work, especially if you have work study. Also, if you have internships or co-ops you're looking for, those are going to get posted on Handshake as well. Especially internships, companies, if they're looking for NDSU graduates, they're going to post their internships through Handshake because they're looking for our students. So generally, we just highly suggest you're using Handshake anyways, and this will be the main tool you use to get connected for our expos as well. So what do we have on Handshake for events? We have employer-hosted events, and so you get one-on-one time or group time with people that come in from companies that come on campus or virtually that want to talk to our students and give them more information on what they do and what they're looking for. We have spotlight days where employers get highlighted across campus, and we also post jobs on our social media. And our big thing, which you're here today to talk about, is job fairs. We will post all of our expos, any career fairs we do, they will all get posted under the events section of Handshake, where you can register, look at them, look at employers that are coming, which we'll talk a little bit more of in a bit. But that's going to be generally the main area that you'll want to look to for our career fairs and for, like I said, on-campus and off-campus work. And so, job fairs. This is kind of a picture we included of the big expo that happens in the Fargo Dome. And so if you can kind of see there, a lot of people, a lot of booths. We'll have well over 200 employers generally at our big expo, and they'll be set up across the entire floor of the Fargo Dome. So, you might not have time to go to all 200 employers. So this is kind of where you're creating your strategy, how you want to talk to people, what you want to do to be prepared. It can get a little hectic. So if you are prepared and you have a game plan, you're ready to go, you're going to maximize what you get out of this career expo and hopefully succeed in your endeavors of going there. And so we talked about Handshake. And so now you want to go to a career expo and you want to talk to employers. So what do? You go under that event section, you click on Career Expo, Marketing, Sales, whatever it might be for the expo we're putting on, you click on it and there'll be a button to register for it. Once you register for the career fair, you'll be able to go on and look through what employers are coming. I talked about that big career expo, hundreds of employers. And so they're going to be looking from anything to, criminal justice, psychology, accounting, engineering, agriculture, you name it. They're going to be there looking for graduates for everyone that goes to school here. And so you can research, what are they looking for? What kind of company are they? Where are they located? Looking at reviews or feedback from students who have interned there. There's just so much information about the employers. and you kind of want to create that and know who's there. So, you can kind of maybe have your top 5 of employers. You know what, I need to, for sure, everything else aside, I want to talk to these 5 employers. And so when you go there, you kind of have an idea of who they are, what they are. You can talk to them about their jobs they're offering, and you're not just going into it without any idea of what you're doing. And so, you're registered now, you kind of have a list of employers, you're kind of starting to like, okay, now what do I do? Well, the one thing you're going to want to bring with you in a Padfolio or something nice to carry it is your resume. You're going to want paper copies. And so with any of these things, we're going over this in the presentation, but if you want more in depth or you want to work on this stuff, we'll tell you several times during this presentation. You can come in, stop by our office, or register to meet with us, and we can help you with all of this more in depth. But the big things about the resume overall is you want to bring in just a single page resume that you can hand out. And you want to make sure, 1/2 inch to 1 inch margins are what you're looking for, but kind of adjust based on what you have for information, how it looks, and a lot of it's personal preference, but try to keep it between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. The biggest thing we always talk about is error-free. If you make errors, there's spelling errors, there's, things aren't consistent, whatever it might be, employers are going to have 20, 30, 50, 100 applications for some of these positions. So they're looking for all sorts of ways to, kind of narrow it down to who they're going to interview. If someone didn't put the effort into and get everything spelled correctly, making their resume, they're like, you know what, maybe this person doesn't have the attention to detail for our company. We're not going to take the time. It's nothing against you personally, but if you're just looking for reasons to weed people out. And so make sure you don't give them a reason. And so making sure it's error-free. Also, like 10 to 12 fonts, pretty good. Use a mainstream font, Arial. Times New Roman is always my favorite. Just like everyone uses Times New Roman. Everyone knows what it is. Avoid things that might not show up in other word processing, or, Comic Sans probably isn't the most professional font to use for a resume. So just stick to the basic ones that are going to look good. And the biggest thing is, as far as like Expo side of it goes, make sure you're better off to bring extra copies of your resumes than have too few. And so, even if it's like 15, 20, if you end up printing out a couple extra pages, that's fine. Like I said, there's hundreds of employers, and you're better off being able to maximize how many resumes get out there, because you might not be able to print them out on the, in the building, or, you might not have time to get more. So making sure you're bringing enough copies to hand out. So as you're going over either creating for the first time or reviewing your resume, one of the big things is when you're doing your research on these companies, see what kind of jobs they're posting, what they're looking for, making sure your words in the resume are matching the descriptions. If you're an engineer and they're looking for someone with extensive AutoCAD experience, well, making sure you're specifically mentioning AutoCAD. Here's a time I've done it. Here's a bullet point on AutoCAD information. Like making sure you're covering everything they're looking for. Because if they're looking for someone with that AutoCAD experience, as this example, but you don't have anything on your resume about AutoCAD, well, then they're going to think you don't have that experience, so they're not going to take the time to interview you. So making sure whatever they're looking for, it's on the resume and easily can be found. And also, we like to think, we're experts on resumes, we're kind of jack of all trades, but we don't know everything about every industry. So if you have questions about engineering or architecture or communications or education, whatever it might be, talk to your advisor. They're the experts in their field. They're the experts in your department. So you can ask them about, hey, what are some departmental or like industry specific things I should be doing on my resume? Ask them about it. Otherwise, the one big thing you'll have at the top of your resume for these in-person ones is an objective. And the objective should be very simple, straightforward, which is a description of like what you're looking for, when you're available to work, what's your major. I am a architectural major looking to do a full-time summer internship in commercial architecture. That'd be a pretty good description of what they're looking for. And so when this employer is reviewing these 20, 30, 40 resumes that got handed to them during the fair, they can get a quick like, oh yeah, that's what they're looking for. They might be hiring for 3 or 4 different positions that have different titles or different, areas of expertise. And so making sure your resume is getting considered for the proper internship opportunity or career opportunity. Our big don'ts, avoid these things, is don't use templates. And they're hard to edit. They have a lot of other reasons, but also if you are submitting these to a company afterwards digitally, they use a lot of AI technology that reads these and pulls the information. Well, if there's multiple text box as they're going down, north and south on your page, it reads left to right. And so it might read one box and then go to the next box, and your information gets all garbled. It doesn't pull it correctly, and then they're not processing your resume correctly. You're just much better off going from scratch, creating your own resume. Unless noted otherwise by your faculty or industry, don't use color. Just black and white will do. It looks professional, and one of the big things when you're printing them, if you include a hyperlink to your LinkedIn or some other form of whatever, making sure it's not blue when you print it. You want to make sure it's black, because sometimes people print them off and you end up with like a blue hyperlink on your page. So just making sure everything's black and white. On the resume itself, do not include references. If they want references, those will be included on a separate page with all their contact information. But for your resume, you're just highlighting and maximizing your experience and skills. And don't use images. Like I said, there might be some very specific situations where you could, like if you're an art major or you're going into acting or something like that. But unless you have a faculty member or your advisor telling you should include images, don't put your headshot on the resume. Don't put any other images or stuff. Just a straight text and your skills and everything that goes into that. So you've now found the Career Expo. You've completed your resume. It's ready to go. You got them printed out. Now, how do I interact with these employers? And so what you want to do is think about how you're professionally presenting yourself. And the first part is dress to impress. Get a step above either what they're asking for or what your day-to-day is. So, it doesn't hurt if they ask for business casual. You can show up in business professional. I always like to say, unless you're showing up in a wedding dress or a tuxedo, you're not going to overdress for the interview. No one's going to dock you off if you show up in a suit and tie or, nice clothing. You're better off erring on the side of looking professional than underdressing and giving a bad impression to the employer. And connected to that, we offer a service in our office called the Career Closet. And so we have a just huge variety of all sizes and styles of professional clothing. You can come to our office and let us know you want to check out the Career Closet. And for up to a couple of weeks, and you can get extensions for free of cost. You can check out professional clothing, suits, dresses, accessory, belts, shoes, you name it, we have it. Just come on up and we can set you up with everything you need for your professional interactions or interviews. Or if you just have other events going on, we're more than happy to check out some clothing to you. So, obviously you're going to have to, in-person career fair, you're going to have to approach these booths, talk to all these people there. And you want to make sure you're using friendly, open, and professional language. Don't ask, what's up, dog, or, that's a sick posting you had there. Like making sure you're not using slang or other words, just usual, regular professional terms, and be very nice. There's always the golden rule. If you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say it at all. Never badmouth anybody, never have negative opinions. I always like to use an example. I worked with a student who, very good skill when we were talking about flexibility, but they were talking about, well, I had a manager who couldn't schedule very well and they're really bad at scheduling and, going on there. I was like, you don't have to say that. All you have to say is, well, there was scheduling errors at work, so I just had to be flexible and help fill in. Like you're not, not giving blame, not being negative, always stay neutral or positive. Kind of match them if they're going for a handshake, or I know it gets a little weird with it since COVID happened, but just kind of matching what they're going for connecting wise. And making sure you're paying attention. If you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, don't just abruptly walk off, don't check your phone, don't look off in different distances. Once you engage with an employer at a booth, make sure you're giving them your full attention and full questioning, and not distracting yourself. If you get a chance, especially if your contact information, send them a thank you note email. Not everyone does that, but employers, it isn't going to necessarily get you a job on its own, but employers notice those things and they appreciate it. And if you keep doing all these little things like sending a thank you note, asking the right questions, being prepared, having a good resume, they all start to add up where you give a very good impression to an employer that they want to look into maybe hiring you. And if you have to follow up on applications, just be very nice about it. Don't be pushy. Don't be, don't make any accusations. Just be like, hey, we had a great conversation. You said, the next couple of weeks you're going to be reaching out to people about this interview. I was just checking to make sure everything's going well. If there's anything else I'm supposed to do, just let me know. Thank you so much. I love talking to you. Talk to you soon. Something along those lines where it's just short, professional, and direct. And when you are having these conversations, we have what we like to call the elevator pitch, which the origins of this was just imagine, you get on the first floor with an employer and they're going to get off at like the 10th floor or 8th floor of this building you're in. You have 30 seconds to 60 seconds while you're in that elevator to say who you are, what your interests are, and why you should be considered for their company. And so just a quick pitch of, I'm so-and-so, I'm an electrical engineering major, I'm looking for these kind of internships. I noticed your company because of these reasons, and I really like that. And I love the fact that you work with this kind of engineering. And that really stuck out to me. Here's some information. And highlighting, and I'm a major here at NDSU. I've done some projects like this. I'm really good at AutoCAD. I have all these great skills. And so, like I said, it's just that 30 small snapshot of 30 to 60 seconds of explaining who you are, why that matters, and what you're looking for. And like I talked about, full attention, always making sure you're on your game. If you need to step aside for a while, take a break and, get a cup of water, do whatever, do that in between employers and get yourself mentally prepared to go to your next booth and just don't, be distracted. And so any answers, make sure you're making a brief and to the point and being honest. Never misrepresent yourself, never lie, never say you have something you don't. And when you're asking them questions, do your research. We keep talking about doing your research. You should never approach an employer and ask them, what does your company do? Because it shows that you didn't put any effort into it. You don't actually know who they are. And you know what? They have so many options for interns. They're looking for somebody that really wants to work at their company. So you want to walk up and ask them a question like, hey, I notice you in your mission statement say that your company really prioritizes reducing your carbon footprint. Could you tell me more about how you actually do that, or what kind of initiatives, or how can an employee get involved with doing that? Or maybe I looked at your website and you mentioned for interns, you have like a professional development series. Could you give me more information on what that looks like? Because part of those questions too are, if you were to be, maybe you have the option of 2 or 3 different employers. This is a chance for you to understand what they have for you to offer as well. So making sure you ask good questions. And now, hopefully you have a great time at the Expo. You have, things are going great. You're going to maybe get some offers, and maybe you have interviews coming up. One of our services we offer that, generally we hear from a lot of students they really appreciate, really like, and they've gotten a lot out of, is we do mock interviews. We'll research what kind of company you're applying to, what the format is, and we'll try to craft our mock interviews to best match what you're going to be going into, whether that's digitally, in person, whatever it might be. And we'll give you feedback on your presentation, on your content, on just about how you should be answering questions in general. And we've heard many times that our mock interviews are tougher than the actual interviews themselves. And so it's just one of those extra steps you can do to put you up and making sure you're giving your best when you go to these interviews. Maybe you need a space for the interviews. Maybe you need to Zoom out somewhere. We have a couple interview rooms in the building that you can check out and have peace of mind that you have a good place with a good internet connection that you can do your interviews at. Also, for some of you, you might have to do credit-bearing internships or internships that require credits from the university. Allie Goossens, our internship coordinator, she handles everything with the internship program, co-ops. So if you have any questions, including some of our international students, you can use, take internships for credit and work with some employers that won't necessarily be willing to sponsor or be willing to work on the outside. But if it's for credit, you can work through our program and work with that company to do an internship. So if you have any questions about or want to, how can I do a credit-bearing internship or what co-ops are, you can come to our office and talk to Allie and she can help you out with that as well. Hopefully, best case, whether it is full-time or, internships or part-time stuff, hopefully you get some job offers. And if you have questions about, is this income good? What are the benefits? What should I do? Where am I going to be living? Is this a good amount of money? whatever it might be. We'll never tell you what to do. That's up to you to decide. But we can go through that offer and kind of talk about and discuss all the different areas, what might fit with you. Is this, what are you looking for? Also, during that process, you might have to do a fuller application beyond your resume that includes references and a cover letter. We can 100% go through those and help you with those as well, and make sure everything from start to finish is really well polished. And so last thing is we also have, if you go to our Career and Advising Center website, it's a great resource for just about anything you can think of career-wise. Obviously, meeting with us is great, but for some of you who are more self-driven or you just want to look at resources, we have tons of great printed and digital resources on our website for all of these things we talked about. We also have the Zoom drop-in studio that operates during the daytime hours. I believe, is it 8 to 4, I believe, Jerry? Yeah, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so you can click, drop in, and just, someone will be there to help you work on your resume or talk about, maybe Expo prep a little more. You can just drop in and you don't have to make an appointment for it, but you can also make an actual appointment with us to go over those things as well. On your right side of our screen, you can also kind of see we post our upcoming events, whether we talked about some of those employer spotlight days, we talked about our career fairs, whatever it might be, those will be there as well. And just like I said, a ton of just great resources overall to use both in person, digitally, or self-driving, and anything you need there. And so other than that, Jerry, do you have anything to add to the end of this before we take Q&A?
Yeah, just overview statements really. The reason with the resume development that we have there is the studio is very, very packed full of employers and students all looking for opportunities. So the employer is going to be pretty focused on making it a very intentional interaction. So when we say a one-page targeted resume and why to tailor your questions specifically to that employer, if that's like a true interest of yours, is to really maximize that opportunity. An employer is going to spend about 30 seconds reviewing your resume. They're not going to sit down at the table, read through it, look at some key, they're looking for some key details that qualify you for an opportunity for an interview. They'll spend some time on it later on as well. And that goes for any application, honestly. The first review is usually about 30 seconds to see if you fit or not, hence the attention to detail aspect of it as well. So without that attention to detail, that's like Brandon said, that's one of the key eliminators for an applicant. You could be the most qualified one there, but if you don't show it right away to them, or you're like, oh, there's no attention to detail, they might even see your qualifications because they're so caught up on word choice error or format inconsistencies or whatever. So that's why we recommend that kind of stuff. It's just because it's the most efficient and focused form of to get your best foot forward for an employer.
Thank you, Jared. Otherwise, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can throw them into the chat if you don't feel comfortable with that. So whatever's up to you. We're here to answer any questions you might have.
There is a question here for us, Brandon. It says, I have a previous 2-year associate's degree and I'm graduating with a bachelor's in computer science. Should I bother listing the 2-year degree on my resume? What's your opinion for that?
Yes, I mean, I think you should. Like anything where you get degree, degree granting, like we say, don't put high school stuff on there because if you're in college, but it gives, more of an educational record. If you have a full-time bachelor's, you don't necessarily have to list it. There's no rules against, there's not like, oh, whatever, but, it doesn't hurt. And so it kind of shows, what your entire educational background is and where you come from. You don't have to list it, but I would say you could, unless you were like desperate for a couple more lines of white space, that might be something more relevant. But otherwise, yeah, you could totally list it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I was thinking the same thing there, Brandon, that if you're just barely running over onto a second page, you could take the 2-year off of there. Another aspect too is if your 4-year is an extension of your 2-year, you don't need to list the 2-year because the 4-year is really kind of replacing it. So, but yeah, otherwise I would agree. I have 3 associate's degrees, a bachelor's and a master's degree, and depends on what I'm applying to, the associates might be relevant. So I can leave some of that information on there. So another question, Oh, how long should I wait to maximize my opportunity to talk to an employer if there's a long queue in front of the booth? Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Typically, that's hard. So some employers, because of those queue lines, because there's a lot of students who want to talk to a couple employers, it's really popular, for example, they actually have started integrating kiosks or sign-in kiosks or iPads in front of their booth, where they'll designate a time for you to meet with them specifically, kind of like a mini interview scheduling system for them. So if you walk up to a booth and you see this really busy, look for that opportunity to see if there is a sign-up booth where you can sign up. Then you can go sign up for a specific time, go back, talk to a different employer, and then come back to meet with them. So other times too, I've seen where some students miss an opportunity is an employer might bring 2 to 3 different representatives, and they'll stand in line waiting to talk to just one of them. So just take a look at the booth, see how many other people are around there, and then take an opportunity to talk to somebody else who might be there as well. But usually I would say maybe, what do you think about 5-10 minutes? 10, depends on how long the line is. Unless you've been waiting there for a long time and they're like, man, this is my #1 employer, then maybe it's worth waiting a little bit longer. So I guess that's really your call how long you want to wait, but that's the idea.
And I was going to add on something I forgot to mention earlier is, like we talked about, researching companies. Well, if you have your phone with you at the Career Expo, and so like there is that long line, like Jerry said, like, hey, maybe check out some other booths because, you never know what's out there. You can just like quickly look them up on the Handshake app for the Expo and see like what the company is and what they're looking for. So if you do kind of want to pop over to some other ones you weren't maybe thinking about, you at least have a little bit of idea who they are. And so you're not completely blind going into talking to them.
Yeah. There's another question that says about objectives. Is it important to have an objective on a resume for a career fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think like generally we we kind of talk about if it's not for your career fair, we say you don't have to put that objective on there because you're including a cover letter, a resume, and references, and they know exactly what position you're applying for. But like I kind of mentioned, it's really nice even to put it on there because it reminds them, because if they only have a paper copy, they don't have a digital copy of your resume, they don't remember why you were talking to them, especially if they're talking to 50 people. It's just a really quick, easy way for them to be like, oh yeah, that's the kind of internship they're looking for. Because they might, if a big enough company might have like, they might be looking for both an engineering intern and they might be looking for like an HR intern, human resources.
Yeah.
And so if there's not an objective, they weren't, they can maybe kind of figure out what you're trying to apply to, but they might not necessarily 100% know. So by putting that objective on there, it's just a really easy way for an employer who's going through them to remind them what you were looking for.
Yeah, I would agree. And one thing I would add to that as well is back to that maximizing your space on the one-page resume. If you're running over, if you have an objective and you're running over and the information that's running over is very, very valuable, then I might consider taking the objective off just so you can maximize your experience on your resume at the same time. So that'd be one thing that I could say about the objective that's a little bit different as well. So just keeping that in mind. Because your resume should have your most relevant and practical information on there. And like Brandon said, that objective really says, here's who I am, and this is what I'm looking for, right? It does, because if there's multiple positions open, they want to know which one you're gonna maximize. Now, that said, I have seen recruiters write on it specifically which position you're applying for if there is no objective as well, but they don't always do that. So you putting it on there, if you know exactly which one you're applying to, does help maximize the opportunity for you to get into that pile of reviewing for later to help them streamline those application packets later on. One other thing about resume, Sue, that I just thought of is the skills, right? So we encourage you to embed your skills into your bullet statements and not to have just a basic skills list on or section on your resume. Because just a list doesn't demonstrate how well you use your skills. It's just a list of skills. So if you can incorporate your skills into your successes of your bullet statements within your experiential learning, now you're maximizing the space and also encouraging the key skills that apply to the position you're applying for.